Welcome back to the Final Chapter Book Club. My name is Renita. This is my friend Jason.
Hello.
Are you ready to explore the dark and thrilling worlds of apocalyptic, dystopian, horror, fantasy, and sci fi media? Well, welcome to the Final Chapter Book Club, where we dive deep into the most gripping tales of survival, despair, and the unknown. Join us as we review the latest and greatest media, discuss mind bending plot twists, and uncover hidden gems that will keep you on the edge of your seat. This week, we're going to be discussing the book You Like It Darker, the fifth Step, which is the second short story in the novel written by Stephen King. Jason, if you want to give us a rundown of the book and tell us a
Sure.
little bit about it.
Talk about the book first. The book is a collection of short stories, like a return to form for Stephen King. He hasn't published a true short story collection in quite a while, and the fans kind of eat it up. And there's a lot of uh, nods to some of his older style writing, some of the themes that he used to write about when he was younger, but he's kind of left behind. But the second story is called
The fifth step.
second, the fifth step. There we
Yeah.
go. Today we will be discussing the fifth step. We'll just break it down really quick. A man is in Central Park in New York, sitting on a park bench. It's a very simple story. It's only 10 pages long. Um, he's approached by a stranger. The stranger asks him if he can help him out with something, and he explains that he's in the AA program and he's on the fourth step, which is he explains that he has to come clean with himself, to others, with people that he knows, with and with also strangers. And so he's supposed to basically like talk to people and let them know some of the bad things that he's done with his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's ambivalent, I guess. He could talk about good things, but I guess in AA the thing is to like let it out,
It's like coming
let it
clean.
go. Yeah, coming clean. There we go. Sorry. He starts to tell the man, the stranger starts to, he accepts the offer and says, I'll listen to you. It's all I have to do is listen to your story. And the guy tells him, sure, just a couple minutes of your time. And he starts to tell him about some things that he did during his life. And it starts off kind of tame. He's like when he was in school, he stole some money from his classroom and blamed someone else on it. And then, he was a bully to some other kid, and the guy is thinking, this is nice, that a stranger could tell about some stuff that he did that was like burdening him, that led to something, bad in his life. Yeah. So in the end, the man tells him, thank you for listening to me, and you've been a part of this, and I really appreciate it. And the guy says, thank you. I'll always be, I'm always glad to listen to a fellow man. And the guy says, by the way, and turns around and he says, I didn't just leave my wife, I left her, but then I beat the shit out of her before I left. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I think I killed her. And the guy's like, what? He's like, how?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, and not only that, pulls out an ice pick and he shoves it into the guy's chest and he tells him, I liked it. The man can't, he's just like, why? The guy just simply stands up and says, what? I'm going to go home and I'm going to pray for you tonight, and
Mm-hmm.
smiles and walks away. And that's the end of the story. Man, that was some evil stuff that just happened in this
Mm-hmm.
van. I mean, it took like a really M. Night Shyamalan twist, like a Twilight Zone twist in the end.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like such a really pure kind of story, stuff that everybody's kind of done. Even if you haven't been a hardcore criminal or an alcoholic, you've done things that you felt sorry for. I mean, I've done it. Like you talk to a stranger, you can kind of unburden yourself without the feelings of guilt because they don't really know who you are. It's a therapist's idea.
Mm-hmm.
Therapist comes in as a neutral party and you can discuss things that you really couldn't talk about before, but there's no setup for it. The whole story is you're blind. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it really seems like this guy is a nice guy and he's doing a
Mm-hmm.
good thing. But it's a Stephen King story, so you're like the arm hairs are, your hackles are up. You're like,
Yeah,
what is
you're
going on?
waiting
You're
for the
waiting for the
drop.
turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What did you think about it?
Honestly, I remember when I was reading through it,
Mwah.
I literally, the moment that Jameson is the innocent stranger, he's our protagonist, and then the
Harold Jameson,
antagonist
yes.
is he calls
Jack?
himself Jack. He didn't
Yeah.
give his real name in the
Jack
story.
the Ripper. I mean, might as well
Yeah,
be.
might as well be. And so I remember when Jack stabs him, I was like, literally, I was like, no, because you were kind of rooting for this guy because he seemed like this tortured guy who just made some really bad choices and screwed up some stuff and was admitting some pretty tough stuff. Like he makes it out like he's really trying to be better and
Yeah.
make it seem as though he's really going through and taking these steps of AA seriously, when in reality he's not.
He's
He's
using his bait, basically.
yeah.
Like,
And I wonder too, part of me, I don't believe he's actually an AA.
sorry.
I think maybe that he
Yeah.
was an AA, like maybe his wife forced him to years and years and years ago, which is why he knows some about it. But I
No,
don't think it's like, I think he's using it as an excuse to get close to people and then
yes.
made up the sponsor.
Man, it was a hard turn. Like that was a
Mhm.
really there's something about Stephen King where he sets up it's a trope with him also that he's done this
Mhm.
character before where he sets up the ice cream man, sets up something is not as what it seems to be and it comes with and nobody sees it. We see it as, usually we see it as the
Mhm.
reader because he gives us hints. He's really good at turning that terrible hand like that. It's always,
Mhm.
the innocent mom behind a closed door or some kid, torturing another kid in the bushes. Like, but it's stuff that really happens, and it's like we're looking at the soft underbelly of like society, stuff that
Mhm.
gets shoved under the rug. And another thing, it's in open daylight. Like it's starting to get dark. The whole
Mhm.
story happens in the middle of a park where there's hundreds of people walking by.
Mhm.
There's even a line where like he wonders if somebody people walking by can hear them talking and then just kind of shrugs it off because everybody's minding their own business.
Mhm.
I mean, Jack the Ripper did it at night, but it's almost the same thing. Like the inevitability of you being caught in the open is so much higher. Why would you do it?
Mhm.
Because you're just so evil and so like
Mhm.
sure of yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah, that character, that character could also deserve its own story. Like, who is this guy? What is he? Was he lie about everything he said just to set up, or was it real? It
Uh-huh.
seemed like it was real because it's like, I'm
I
gonna pray for you.
I felt like it came across like very serial killer vibe. This is not the first time this guy's done this. This
Careful,
definitely feels like he's not only, but a little uncareful. Like you said, he does it in the middle of broad daylight, and after a while,
casual.
the lust that serial killers feel over what they do, that sexual
Yeah, no,
interaction
for
that they
him it
get,
was
it was
definitely
definitely like,
unloading. Yeah, no, and it could have been as easy as making up a story, just
uh
seeing if
huh,
you can get this guy to believe it. It was the intimacy because
mm-hmm,
the act of killing was just almost like a casual thing as he was walking away. Oh, by the way, it wasn't the killing itself; it was getting close to him and knowing that he could do
mm-hmm,
it at any time, but
mm-hmm.
never did.
Yeah.
Ugh!
And I thought it was really interesting that he was talking about, I'll pray for you. We've got this like religious sort of feeling, like we sort of had that undertone from the first short story, and it's kind of followed through in the second one just a little more blatantly, but it's used as a weapon, like not just the fact that he just stabbed this guy and he's bleeding to death in broad daylight, like the little dot on the eye when he's like walking away with a smirk on his face, I'll pray for you. The
Yeah.
power that he gets from what he's done. And there's really no reason for it. And I feel like that's part of the beauty of this story, if you could call it beautiful, um, is the fact that there is no reason for this needless type of murder or death
No,
or
and especially after the other one we read, it was like going from hope into just it's just a drop
despair.
of a dime, just like no, like yeah, like the loss of a life, and yeah, no, this guy only realizes that he's stabbed, and he probably only has like a minute left to live because it
Mm-hmm.
probably got a punctured lung. He can't
Mm-hmm.
he can't cry out or talk. It said like,
Mm-hmm.
ugh,
We went from beautifully hopeful to tragically hopeless
yeah.
in the course of two stories.
There's a monster out there still walking around praying
Yeah,
for people. Like, I'm gonna pray for you. Like, no,
yeah.
don't save it, pal. You
Yeah, and it's
know.
like I don't know. It just reminded me of how many times, like when I went to school in New York, the way the story is told, you're put into Jameson's shoes, You
Yeah.
know, because you're like, how many times would you go sit in the park? And like for me, I would have my headphones in, I'm reading a book, just enjoying the sunshine,
It's a
enjoying.
very normal thing, it seems like. I
Mm
mean, even if you haven't done it, you can, I mean, well, especially the way that Stephen King writes, obviously it's going to be, you're going to see it. But
hmm.
in
Mm
this
hmm.
case, it was very, I didn't think that the setting was going to play so much a part of, and that was the whole setting. I mean,
Mm
there's
hmm.
literally a park bench and two people talking, and their casual observations of each other, their body language, and there's no real flashbacks to anything that happens. It's just the guy telling him and the other guy reacting,
It's
and
just conversation. It's
it could
just
be a play.
calm.
It
Yeah. It's
could be a
calm
one act play.
conversation into this tragic death, painful, and it almost feels like betrayal because this guy is like, I'm gonna get up and leave, this is some crazy person trying to talk to me or whatever, and he was right, but then he gives the guy a chance because he was so convincing. So he gives the guy a chance and he's trying to have a
You gotta,
conversation.
buddy. It's
And
just words, yeah. I'm
uh
just listen to what I have to say, and I'll walk away, and we'll feel so much better. I will. It's my last step, buddy, and I just, I'm not a bad man. I just, have some things that I've done that I just need to talk about.
I think it's interesting because I wonder too, because in the story, like in the very beginning, Jack is discussing his sponsor. And for those of you who know anything about AA, a sponsor is someone that keeps in touch with you and encourages your recovery. And it's someone that you're supposed to reach out to when you feel urges to drink
Yeah.
or do drugs or things that would help you fall back into that path of addiction. He's talking about this guy, and I almost wonder because he talks about this person in a rather, I don't know, disdainful way. Like,
Like his sponsor doesn't believe him. He said that a couple
uh,
times. Like, I know my sponsor doesn't believe me, but I'm, a good guy, and there
is your
is clues. You're
sponsor
right.
like locked up in your basement or something? Like,
Or just dead,
yeah, or is he already dead and you just.
Or did he just make it up? Now that I think about it, I think it's real because he keeps bringing up this detail about the sponsor being unhappy with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's too fine of a detail. An outsider sitting on a park bench, he said, "My sponsor's mad at me because it's like raising a red flag." But if I'm sitting there and he's like, "Dude, like my sponsor is so upset with me," and
Mm-hmm.
that becomes the whole conversation basically. Oh, why? Why
Mm-hmm.
is your sponsor upset with you? And here's why. That part of the story is probably real because he, brings it up several times where he talks about the sponsor's unhappy with him. And again, it could be he's feeding into a lie. He's building a lie, but it's almost too perfect. Can you help me? And the guy's like, "Pah, you put it that way. It's so easy. I mean, I usually don't entertain strangers, but
Mm-hmm.
like, you seem like a nice guy. Have a seat."
Maybe Jack keeps going back to his sponsor, like, no, I just can't do it. I just can't do it
Yeah,
because
could
there's
be
no
that
real
too.
proof of him admitting
Yeah, no,
anything.
he's like, "I'm trying to, but I just can't,
I just can't. And it's like he's
I don't
using
have
his
anybody."
sponsor as an excuse. And like this poor guy's another innocent bystander that's
No, it
wrapped
makes
up in all
perfect
of
sense.
this.
He's like, nope, I still haven't talked to anybody. Sponsor's like, come on, you're in the last step. You've been sober for this long. You're almost there, pal. It's just
Mm-hmm.
words. It's just words. You got to relieve yourself. And Jack's probably like, can I tell you? And he's like, no, you can't talk to me about that. You have to talk to a stranger or somebody that you hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I am, part of the program, and so you can tell me certain things, but it's not the same thing as relieving your burdens to a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, the wording says to someone that you loved or have hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put it that way, like everybody that he loves, he's hurt and killed probably. Like he
Probably.
said, he admitted he killed his wife in the end. I mean, he's ambivalent about it, but then he says he went back and made sure that he
Mm-hmm.
definitely killed her. And
Yeah.
then he said, also that he had a fight with someone at the plant that he worked at or something. And oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he said casually, I killed him too, by the way.
The guy's a serial killer and he's just obsessed with that feeling of power that he gets from just being able to take someone's life with his bare hands.
I
And
think he gets
it's
more from telling people about it later in that
mm-hmm,
moment.
the moment where he is telling someone his dirty deeds.
Yep, and
He
he's
does the
relieving.
dirty deed and then he goes, and the big thing with serial killers is the reliving of it. So
Yeah.
in a way, that second and third step
Oh, he
kind
can go
of
tell the Yeah, he can
come
go tell the
together.
story later if
He
he
can
wants to too.
reminisce and
Yeah.
continue telling these stories. Because, okay,
Oh,
this guy at the plant, was he really his friend, or was it just someone in the wrong place at the wrong time? Was it really his wife,
no.
or was it just a girl that,
Oh,
in the
yeah. I
wrong place
mean,
at the wrong time? Like, how is he twisting the story in his own head? Like, how crazy is this guy really? Which is such a fascinating,
just yeah,
horrifying thought. Just
so
so
many
scary.
with only a few words, like all that's come from it. It's like it's only
Hmm.
10 pages long, so that's it was a great story
Oh,
and
absolutely.
perfect for breaking up. That last one was a really long one of the longer ones, and so this is one of the
Hmm.
shortest ones. I thought that was really nice.
It's like a jump scare after the first story was so
It was
sweet in a
very
way
unexpected,
and
yeah.
encouraging and hopeful, and this is just so dark. That's such a clever way of just setting up the book, because I highly doubt like Stephen King like wrote this story and then this story directly afterwards. Like,
No.
obviously they have to set up a book with, like, it's much like setting up a music album. You want to tell a full concise story. So I thought it
Right.
was really interesting. It kind of starts off like the first one, but then it ends so tragically. And then we get into our next episode, which will be about Willie the Weirdo. Such a great transition story within this collection of short stories. I think it's very, very clever the way the editors put this one in.
Again, I break it down so hard that it's like always good versus evil. It's like, is there going to be a good man or woman to step up and combat this terrible evil? Well, I
Mm-hmm.
want to see that story. That's the story.
Mm-hmm. But with this kind of short story, it's like you don't get that.
No, and
You
it's so sad, and
Yeah,
it's
you get
like
this sudden drop, and
despair.
it's just despair. So we go from
Yep.
hope to despair in this series so far. But this has been the fifth step from Stephen King's book, You Like It Darker. Thank you for watching our second episode right here on the Final Chapter Book Club, and we will definitely be back. Keep an eye out for next week's episode, Willie the Weirdo, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.